Welcome back to another great guest. I've got Nathan Ives on the line today, who's going to talk to us about his expertise with many years in business development. And welcome to the Instant Celebrity Maker, Nathan.
Mitch, thank you for having me on your show.
Well, first question, how would your friends describe you?
You know, Mitch, I think what they would say about me is that I'm driven, that I'm able to envision opportunities, and then I have both that drive and the skills to make them happen. So I think that's probably how they would best describe me in the business setting anyway.
So you're like you implement.
That's right. I'm an implementer.
Fantastic. Because there's so many dreamers out there. We need implementers.
Yeah, I can see the pieces of the puzzle, I guess you could say, and put together that actionable plan to make things actually come to fruition.
Well, and what is your greatest accomplishment?
So I think in just in business and in life in general, and it's one that took a lot to learn. I won't say I'm still great at it, but it's learning how to say no, not letting people take advantage of you. Yeah, and I have found that when you say no, that usually opens up your best opportunities. So whether you're in kind of that dead end job, or there's this challenge that people are saying that you can't do, by saying no, making that refusal, often what you find then are the other opportunities that present themselves, that you got to shed that thing that you don't like most. So I would call that my greatest accomplishment. Like I said, it's still something that I work on every day. It's what to say no to.
Well, you are speaking my language, because I have, as a professional speaker, an introduction reel. And inside it, I say something that I will send you after, because you will be able to see the proof of it. On my YouTube channel, it says, I say no to the good and yes to the great.
Exactly. Yeah, so we get hung up on saying yes to the good and being satisfied way, way, way too often. And we forfeit that great opportunity.
Well, that's you're speaking my language there. So, all right, well, let's go back a little bit. What would you have liked to have known when you started out in business?
It's the real world application of things. I went to school, I got my MBA, things of that sort. But the example, when I started my first business, I left my job. I was at one of the big 4 consulting firms. I was a fairly senior person, had a great income. I didn't line up that business loan first. Why would I? I was not in business. I waited until a couple days after I formally ended that job and had my business. So, end on Friday, start on Monday. Monday morning, bright and early, I'm sitting there at the bank with a loan officer that said, well, I could have given you that loan on Friday.
Oh my God.
Now you're a new business. So yeah, it's, the mechanics of things, but the mechanics of things, we'll say academically, don't necessarily work in the real world. So there was a lot of fits and starts. That was one. I had observed people's budgets refresh at the beginning of the year. So I planned the business start on January 1st, because I was in the consulting industry. And didn't occur to me, oh, wait a second. They make the spending decisions back in the summer when they're budgeting. Yes, they have the bucket of money in the beginning of the year, but the decision on how to spend it was made earlier. I would have been better off starting in July, knowing I wasn't going to get contracts and I was going to have a lean 6 months, because all I did was set myself up to have a lean year.
Wow.
So, there's a difference, I think, between the way the real world works and the way some of these fundamental principles or mechanics work. And I wish I had maybe some foresight or better foresight. Maybe I should have gotten some business coaching ahead of time to gain that understanding and appreciation of how the real world
works. Those are 2 great examples. Great examples. I'm sure there are more, but those are 2 great ones. And so for the younger people to learn from.
Yeah.
Well, what is Nathan curious about right now?
So I think the thing that I wonder about most, and I'm in business development. So it's, what's that next big marketing thing? There was a period we had podcasts, and they've made a resurgence lately.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course we had videos, and now we've kind of adapted to video podcasts. We got social media out there. We've gone through the email marketing, but it's what's next. When I think about the folks that have done very well with engaging their audience, and I don't mean just getting a lot of likes, I mean really truly engaging from a business perspective and converting those likes into meaningful relationships and sales. They've been the people that, when they have been early identifiers of the new opportunity, whether it was social media marketing, content marketing, the videos, the podcasts were like, they've gotten in early and were able to build that following and that engagement early before those that waited and then started to notice, because some others were achieving some success.
Early adopters.
Yeah. And if you are not the early adopter, then it's so much harder to achieve success. So what I'm most curious about is, okay, what's this next platform of engagement and communication?
One I'll bring up to you, and you've had to have been exposed to it because we operate in pretty much the same universe, different specialties, but Clubhouse. And people were raving about it. Have you been on Clubhouse?
I have not been on Clubhouse.
You've heard about it?
But I've heard about it.
Yeah. Okay. Heard about it. Everybody was talking about it for like a 2-month period of time earlier in the year, and said, Mitch, you have to get on it. You got to get on it. You got to get on it. You got to get on it. I said, okay. I accepted an invitation. It's a invitation only platform. You got to get an invite, which of course is a marketing strategy in itself.
Right.
And so I opted in. I set up my Clubhouse. I thought, okay, I only have 2 invites. So there's some specialness to that invite. I went in and I realized it's an incredible time suck. And now I hear nobody talking about Clubhouse. I think it was a fad. It came up, it was a blip.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the similar experience, not with Clubhouse, but maybe some remember back in the day, Apple on the iOS devices had a specific app for publications, newspapers and magazines.
Okay.
And you could spend thousands of dollars. I did, because you needed a solution that made the app. So every magazine was its own app.
Yep.
But there weren't a lot of magazines in this app store.
I did the same thing, by the way.
Yeah, Newsstand was what it was called.
I did the same thing.
Yeah. And then, of course, it all fell apart when Apple got rid of Newsstand. And now it just, your apps, your magazines, if it become just another app in the sea of apps.
So you're like, what is the new? Okay,
but of course, like Clubhouse or like Newsstand, there is that risk that we may make that investment, we jump in, and then we find, this is not.
Yeah. If you remember Google Wave, that was another one. And Google Plus,
Google Plus, yeah, I was there on Google Plus as well. Yeah.
And they're gone. And Google Hangouts, gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but like anything, sometimes you need to make an investment, because when you get onto the front of the wave on the one that sticks, now you've got it made.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what's something you failed at? Learning experiences are different than failure.
Yeah, and I'm going to call this one maybe a negative experience. I sleep well at night. So I had a consulting client, and we do assessments. We do cultural assessments. I'm not going to, of course, name the client, but they didn't like how their assessment came out. And they wanted us to alter the assessment.
Wow.
So we didn't do it. I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in follow-on contracts because they immediately terminated all the contracts down the line. I don't lose sleep over that at night. But there was also another hang up, another lessons learned, a failure that I do not repeat now. is in doing this assessment, these people wanted other, I was the lead because I had the consulting firm, but they wanted people from other outside companies to participate. And they wanted those people to sign off. Well, the issues they had with the report were the issues these other people from other companies had written. So I couldn't make them go away because it was mandated that those people sign the report, and they wouldn't sign the report if their issue went away. So the couple lessons learned was, have a customer and be beholden to the customer. Don't have these little side strings attached that are going to lock down, your business to get in the way. So one customer, not 3 customers, many of whom don't write the check. And then, you still got to sleep at night. So I would rather sleep at night and not falsify a report, but it cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Balance, isn't it?
It's balance. Yeah. So that was a failure in contracting that ultimately led to being in a position of having to make some ethical judgment calls. That cost me a lot of business. So that was probably one of those bigger failures, not maybe a right word, but challenge.
Got it. Yeah, it's almost an ethical check, a morality check.
That's right. Had to fire that client ultimately.
Got it. And it's happened. If you've got any maturity in business, it happens.
It happens. It does. I'm fortunate. It's the only one, but it happens.
I lived overseas for a number of years, and the ethics in certain countries vary deeply, broadly, and something that as an American would be very uncomfortable here, which is the norm over there. As in an envelope stuffed with cash. And here it's called kickbacks. Over there, it's a necessary way of doing business. And I'm not going to name the country because I don't want to get in trouble. But you've got to sympathize. You've got to sympathize. It's like sometimes it's stretched outside of morality or ethics as we understand them. And it's where do you sacrifice or cut? But let's move on to my favorite question.
All right.
That I ask in my interviews, Nathan.
Yeah.
If you could have coffee or a beverage of your choice with any historical figure, and he or she has to be passed on, not a current one.
Okay.
Who would you choose?
So I stayed with a business figure because this is a tough one. I like a lot of different folks, but the business figure would be Steve Jobs.
Okay, and he's passed on.
And he has passed on, unfortunately, very recently. I think that was a loss for all of us. In fact, I'm sitting here in front of a MacBook Pro.
Me too. I have the same one right in front of me.
Yep, I'm influenced by Steve every day, and I found him not just to be a visionary. He had a very unique understanding of what people needed and desired before I think they even did,
and where the market's going.
And where the market was going. And he was able to translate that visionary insight so well into business to not only just, foster the development of the various things that we use today, but to build what is now the company with the highest market cap in the world, which was amazing when their market cap exceeded ExxonMobil.
Have they exceeded Amazon?
Well, back in the day, they were the first company to hit $1 trillion in market capitalization. So maybe they've,
I don't know,
a little bit right now, but
it's worth checking post interview here to see. But what I had read, I think, was Jeff Bezos is the wealthiest man in the world, and I wondered if that correlated to market cap. But
and it may, of course, that was all pre-COVID. My numbers are pre-COVID, so Amazon. I admit, Amazon has almost daily deliveries to my house. So, yeah. So, but Steve Jobs, and again, it's that ability to understand people, translate all that vision into a successful business, and just how he was able to navigate competitors and investors and the like. And I know his story. There were bumps in the road, but the breakthrough success he had in the early 2000s, just incredible. So
Right.
I consume books about Steve Jobs. And
So who's been your most important professional mentor
so from that perspective,
on a personal basis versus from afar?
yeah, on a very personal basis, his name is John Mchugh. John recently retired from Deloitte, and Deloitte is the largest of the big four. John retired as their vice chair of energy for Deloitte here in the US.
Great.
He was the partner that gave me the opportunity to join Deloitte.
Oh,
And he was a personal coach and mentor even after I left Deloitte. We would touch base on a periodic basis, and he would give me coaching and mentoring. He taught me how to understand a client, but equally important, how to bring value or valuable insights to a client in a way that was impactful to the client, so that they could act on it and then realize that benefit in a way that made sense for their company. And so tremendous influence in my professional career.
All right. If you could go back to when your beard wasn't gray, to the time of being 18,
Okay.
what advice would you give the young Nathan?
So it was, I would say, to not hesitate. And this gets back into that, the learning or the accomplishment of saying no. I think I've hesitated in saying no way too often and let bad situations go on, which really steal opportunities for growth and advancement from a person. As a case in point, I had this philosophy years ago that I would stay in a job for at least 1 year. And there were some jobs that I just knew were awful and I was not a good fit. And I came to that realization after being there just a few weeks even. But I would stay a year and tough it out. Just an arbitrary commitment that I made. Not anything that was asked, not anything that was contractual. I just didn't move on.
Okay.
And so I think it's hesitation. And that, I know it's different than procrastination, but it's hesitation. It's the fear of moving on. And I think that's the one thing, if I had to do over, there are so many instances in my career, it's the hesitation in life of not moving on or seeking something better.
You just didn't have the business maturity at that point. So.
Right. And that's kind of that big advice. And I think it works equally well in a personal life as well in a business life.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's another topic, another day.
Another day. Yeah.
So tell us about your goals and what's your plan to achieve them today, for what you have in store for you. I noticed you're wearing your shirt, strategy driven.
Strategy driven. That's my company. Yeah. So, our goal is to increase, of course, company size. I would tell you my ultimate goal is to own a business, not to run and operate a business.
Okay.
So, Michael Gerber, one of my favorite authors. And if I hadn't picked Steve Jobs, I would have picked Michael Gerber as the second. The book I love most is The E-Myth Revisited for a business perspective. So strategy driven is in full growth mode. So we are reinvesting all the profits back into the business right now.
Okay.
But it's so we have what we're good at, and we're reinvesting to expand our presence in the market.
Well,
so our goal is
that.
Right. So it's to get to a point, not to stop growing, but to at least get to a point where now, instead of working in the business, the systems are in place, the leadership teams, the execution teams are in place, to where business dividends and the like would be a comfortable living.
Got it.
Not seeking a wealthy living, but a comfortable living, so that then I can go pursue the philanthropic and other interests that I have while the business carries on.
And an occasional steak dinner at Sizzler. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And
are they even around anymore in Atlanta?
You know, my parents talk about going to Sizzler every once in a while up in Pennsylvania.
Okay, they have a good
So
salad.
I live in Florida. I'm guessing that they exist in some places.
Okay. Are you
Yeah.
in Florida or in Atlanta?
I just moved to Orlando.
Oh, you just moved to Atlanta?
Oh,
Okay.
this is the new setup for me. I'm moving to Orlando. Interestingly enough, in the Navy, after I graduated the Naval Academy,
Uh-huh.
this was my first duty station. I actually physically live on what used to be the Navy base in Orlando.
Oh, wow.
So I went to nuclear power school here, and the base closed and was sold back in '96, and now it's a gorgeous community.
So you're a
So
Navy man. Okay.
I'm a Navy guy.
Well,
Used to drive
thank you for
nuclear
your
submarines
service.
around.
Thank you for your service. I will
Well,
say
thank
that.
you. Thank you. It was my honor.
Okay. And if you don't achieve your goals, sailor, what how will that make you feel?
You know, I'm not going to say it's going to make me feel bad. I view not attempting to achieve something, that's worse than failure. I would rather make the effort and fail than to not have tried at all. If you never try at all, it's regret. And I would rather deal with failure than regret.
Okay.
So granted, I'm not going to be happy if I don't achieve my goal, but that's better than living with a regret. So we're going to keep pushing on.
And how do you overcome a challenge when it's thrown at you? And based on your beard color, I know you've had some challenges.
I've had a few. Well, Mitch, what I do is we understand where we're at. We understand, or we define where it is we want to go. And then I break it down into bite-sized chunks. If it's a large challenge, maybe it's a multi-year chunk. So it's a 5-year goal and we have a 3-year, benchmark to get to, and we have actions we're taking this year. So early in my career, I didn't necessarily like the type of work I was doing, wanted to get into consulting as I did at Deloitte. And so I knew I needed an MBA. Well, that was a 5-year plan. I had to go back. I had a physics degree from the Naval Academy. I had to go back and do prereqs for business school and so on and so forth. So that was a longer term plan. So I tend to, like I said, identify where I'm at, where I'm going, and break it up. It's not always the big plan, but you got to be able to take actionable steps to get from point A to B. So that's how I do it.
Yeah, and implement. Okay. Now,
that's
right. Have you been part of a book, or do you have a desire or a dream to write a book?
So I do have the desire to write a book. I've actually written 2, but they're very business processes-ish. So the answer is yes, and I've been working on it. I've done a lot of interviews. Strategy Driven is also a publishing company with a lot of authors, and I've read a lot of leadership books. And of course, Annapolis is a leadership school. What I find is there's twists, and everyone has their own take on a leadership principle. But fundamentally, if you took all the leadership books that have been published, there's probably about a half a dozen core principles.
Okay.
Well, what most books don't do is they don't tell you how to execute on them. So I'd like to boil that ocean down to these 6, but then it would be a very action-based book. It's like, okay, here's the principle, and here's what it looks like on a day-to-day basis.
I like
and, I had the good fortune, again, going to Annapolis. Everything taught there is done for a purpose, and a lot of it was made actionable for me. So hence, that would be a great feeder for the book.
Okay. Now, this gives you a lot of latitude.
Okay.
What's one question you wish I had asked you, and how would you have answered?
Yeah. So that one question was, how do I find opportunities? I've talked a lot about opportunities, and you wouldn't have known that, before the interview. I didn't give you all the answers to my questions or your questions.
Well, that's why we're doing the interview.
Yeah, that's right. So I think the question that I would ask, or maybe I thought the listeners might ask, is, how do you find opportunities? And for me, opportunities often come from unique and interesting places. The whole reason Strategy Driven does publishing today is because people came to us asking if we would publish their work. And we evolved into that. It just took time to recognize, people are coming to us with this. Gee, I wonder if they would be willing to pay for it because it's going to cost us money to do it. And sure enough, we were able to build a profitable business. Then we started to realize or look at and say, well, what assets do we have? Well, we had a website that had assets. It had subscription based. We sold products on the website. Well, there are other people that wanted to do that. And that has led both to the development and selling of training programs on how to build what we have, as well as I've got customers that have us build their websites. So, the website was built out of, necessity. It was a skill I learned. We talked about that earlier, to execute on achieving a goal, that became a value. So opportunity, sometimes it's taking stock in what you have and is of value to you and evaluating if it would be a value to others. Other times it's just looking at the opportunity that's knocking on the door and just opening that door.
Great. Well, how can we support you in helping you achieve your goals and exposing you? Because
this is great. So of course, sharing with your audience.
Okay.
And again, we're both a publisher and we're a consulting firm. So we help people with their business development, particularly in what I call digital marketing. So helping us get the word out to that bigger audience about Strategy Driven, that will be of great help and of value to us.
Be my pleasure. There are ways that we can do that very, very well. And
thank you.
My background is press and media to the nth degree, and that's what I've done for a lot of companies. But we'll talk more about that.
Great.
Yeah, offline. And what would you say about your guest experience on the show, other than our technical snafu in the beginning?
Which I should have known.
That's okay. It's all right.
The audience, my background, I had to get that fixed. My experience has been great. What I particularly liked, Mitch, I really appreciated getting the questions in advance.
Okay.
Allowed me to think through the answers and prepare. I don't know that I would have had as good of answers had I not had those in advance and gone through. So that was really helpful. So my experience has been great.
Okay, great. I appreciate it. Final word.
Final word. So it gets back to what I was talking about earlier. You need to pursue that dream. Regret is far worse than failure. Rather fail 100 times over than to live with the regret, go to the grave and say, I wish I had.
Regret I'm writing this down, is far worse, and I'll give you credit, than failure.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Is that something you learned at the Naval Academy, or is that your own deduction from?
That's been my own deduction. And again, it gets back into the saying no. Every time I've taken the action to close a door, what I found is the next door I walked through was so far better. And life was so much better.
I'm going to create that as a social media post and give you the credit.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
And use that because that's yours. And I think it's great. It's a great illustration. It's a great. Well, look, you've done an exceptional job imparting great wisdom and experience for our listeners today. For me, one of the biggest benefits of me as a podcast host and as a former radio show personality is I learn a ton. It's almost a selfish intent. It's a way for me marketing and helping other people. I get to market myself. And the real big takeaway is I learn a ton. I will create this and create that for you. And I'll tag you so you'll be able to see. I'll put this into action because I am an implementer like you. So thanks for your time today. You were a great guest. And I'm sure we'll do this again.
I look forward to it. Mitch, thank you very much.